At the Eindhoven University of Technology, at the Department of Industrial Design, we are exploring a new application of virtual and augmented reality for a novel direction in human-computer interaction named cultural computing. The main objective of the ALICE project is to create an interactive installation that encourages people in Western culture to reflect on themselves, based on the narrative of Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, which addresses issues such as logic, rationality, and the self. The ALICE installation was built inside of a building at the Eindhoven University of Technology, which takes a space of 12 by 12 meters, spanning 2 floors over a total height of 7 meters. In the first scene of Carol's original book, Alice is bored and sleepy, sitting on a bench with her sister. A white rabbit runs close by her, and while looking at its pocket watch, it cries out, oh dear, I shall be late!" The visitor of the ALICE installation enters this stage through 2 curtains. Inside, a 360-degree panorama picture of Oxford surrounds the visitor, the place where Carol lived and worked. The visitor has to wait until he is bored and thereby enters a similar state of mind as Alice in the original book. Then, a white rabbit appears from behind the curtain. It has a pocket watch and says through its internal speakers, oh dear, I shall be late." On its way to the rabbit hole at the far end of the room, it passes the visitor. It tries to seduce the visitor to follow by starting a catch me if you can type of behavior. The rabbit enters a hidden section inside of the rabbit hole before the visitor enters the hole and hence disappears from sight. The visitor enters the rabbit hole after the rabbit and thereby enters stage 2. Alice falls down the rabbit hole in an unusual fashion. The speed of her fall is very slow and she is able to interact with objects that are attached to the walls of the rabbit hole, such as cupboards and bookshelves. When entering the rabbit hole in the ALICE installation, the visitor finds an electric seat that is mounted on a rail. Once safely seated, the seat takes the visitor down a tunnel in a spiral movement. Along the walls of the tunnel, cupboards, bookshelves and lamps are mounted. Alice enters a dark corridor with many doors. She approaches a glass table on which a small golden key lays. She uses the key to open a tiny door that leads to a garden, but Alice is too tall to enter. She approaches the table again, and this time she notices a bottle labeled Drink Me, and later a little cake labeled Eat Me. By drinking from the bottle, she shrinks, and by eating the cake, she grows. Eventually, she manages to have the appropriate size to enter the tiny door. The visitor enters the cave and has the impression to stand in a virtual room. A cookie box labeled Eat Me and a bottle labeled Drink Me are placed on top of a small table. When the visitor drinks from the bottle, the virtual room enlarges, giving the impression that the visitor is shrinking. When eating the cookie, the virtual room shrinks, giving the visitor the impression that he is growing. On one side of the room, a door is shown. Once the visitor reaches the appropriate size, the wall on which the door is shown moves aside and thereby allows the visitor to enter stage 4. During her growing and shrinking experience, Alice cries many tears. When she walks through the tiny door, she enters a pool of tears. She talks to a mouse that swims alongside her, and together with some other animals, they finally reach the shore. When the visitor enters stage 4, the sea with a mouse in it is projected on one of the walls. In addition, a smoke machine creates an impression of moisture and adds a mystical feeling to the stage. The visitor walks along the projection and thereby enters stage 5. The caterpillar engages Alice in a discussion about herself. It asks Alice who she really is and how she wants to be. In the installation, the caterpillar is a robotic agent that features a microphone array to record the utterances of the visitor, but also to detect the relative position of the visitor. The caterpillar's body and head turn towards the visitor when it listens. A dialogue system manages the conversation. The Cheshire Cat involves Alice in a dialogue about logical reasoning and madness. During the dialogue, the cat disappears at times completely, and sometimes only its grin remains visible. In contrast to the previous stage, we did not use the robotic agent, since the transformations of the cat are impossible in reality. We therefore created an animated virtual Cheshire Cat that is projected on a screen. When the visitor approaches the cat, it engages him in a dialogue similar to the one in Carol's book.